Hello, my name is Andrew Maher, and I'm an evangelist with Avaya in their customer engagement solutions. This is a talk I held this week in the Netherlands at ViPcom Interaction. I like to talk about engagement, and engagement is something I think we all understand. We've probably heard things about Industry 4.0 and other types of 4.0s as sort of phases of revolutions of how things have created themselves and grown over the last 100 or so years, from early machines now through to the digital age of things. But engagement is something I'd like to focus on in this talk here today. If you think of the first and the basic form of any kind of engagement, it was always across the counter or talking directly to a salesperson. That person could see you, they could read your body language, they could tell who you were, maybe they even knew you. They could see if it was raining outside or if your haircut were fresh. Then, of course, I came along in my career in the mid-1990s and began working with AT&T when the heyday of call centers and contact centers were beginning there. This was what I would then describe as engagement 2.0. 2.0 meant we have a new phase, a new way. We have now distance between you and the person trying to serve you, trying to sell you something here. You couldn't see the person anymore here. Of course, after the first contact centers, immediately customers were hungry for the next set of automation tools, and IVRs came along. My career as a contact center consultant then moved along from AT&T into Lucent Technologies, and the technologies began to change, and email came around, became popular. Email brought with us what I call engagement 3.0. 3.0 is now you not only have distance between you and the person you're trying to service here, but there's also time lapse. This is asynchronous here. You're not talking to them in real time. Avaya then came around in the 2000s, and of course now we have a plethora of communication channels and even robots with which customers and users want to interact with you and your businesses here. So how do we get to this engagement 4.0? How do we get back to that original feeling of knowing what you need to know about a person, about a customer, being able to service them in the right way, the right moment, and with all the right information? One statistic I saw late last year was that we now, and we probably noticed some of this ourselves here, we now spend about 68% of our digital time on a mobile device. It's just amazing when you think back about how we grew up. Many of us here in this room today here grew up just not even having computers when we began our careers here. And then computers were something for very specific tasks. And then we were working with desktops or laptop computers that most of us have now today. And how quickly this thing in our pockets that we all have with us has become the center of where we're consuming most digital information. So a little bit about artificial intelligence and how it's being used in communications, and a couple of definitions or a couple of components here. A lot is talked about natural language processing. This is what computers need to do in order to understand what you are communicating to them, whether you're speaking to them or you're typing to them. So the natural language processing is part of the AI toolkit here that is used to help understand that, decode that, and put it into a form that computers can understand. Machine learning is when, of course, software learns to do things without having been told specifically to do that. So based on previous experiences, previous conversations, previous programs it's worked through here, it's now learned what is probably the next right thing to do here. And then one that's catching up and getting a whole lot of attention recently here is image and pattern recognition. The ability for a computer to recognize perhaps a photograph of something and see what's in that photograph here and be able to provide insight and information, and then perhaps apply machine learning then what to do with that based on what it's learned out of the photograph here. So what are we going to do with some of these? I'm going to give you some examples about conversation automation using AI, how we can assist users in a system here, or agents. I have to excuse myself, I focus a lot on customers, and customers are serviced by agents in my role here, but everything I'm going to talk about here today applies to normal users, back office, UC, if you want to call it that here, as well, and how they could be assistants. And then, of course, general process assistance through artificial intelligence. A couple of examples you might be familiar with here. I'm a big fan of Spotify here, and one place where they're using artificial intelligence is each week they deliver a new playlist to me. They call it the Discover Weekly, which tells me, gives me a new fresh list of numbers of songs and that I can listen to here based on my listening patterns, but also to listening patterns of other people that are listening to the types of songs I'm listening to as well. So mixing that all up together here and providing me a list of 30 songs each week. This is something that they came in about last year, and it's getting really, really smart. Another example is in Seattle, Washington. Amazon, who I think we all are aware with here, is bringing out their first store, if you want, their brick and mortar store. It's going to be like a little shop there where you can go buy fresh goods and foods here. There will be no checkout counters. They're going to be using computer vision over the aisles there, where you just pick up things from the counter, put them into your bag here, and it immediately applies it to your shopping list. Knowing then when you leave the store and you pass out of the store here, it then charges you for everything you took. No lines, no checkouts, just grab and go. An example here, which I found in the Netherlands recently here from the company Rentokil, which is a company that specializes in pest control here, is using artificial intelligence to take what they're already collecting from their sensors that they install into their stores. There might be mouse traps and things like that, which are now connected to the Wi-Fi, sending information back, applying and overlaying that information with data about climate, rodent populations, and being able to predict when there might be an outbreak and they need to do something before it actually happens in a certain part of a city or a town. Some of these you may be using as you're well here, whether you use Apple or Android or perhaps even Windows devices here, you've learned perhaps how to talk into your phone here to give it commands. So you're using voice, it's using voice recognition to recognize what you're talking about here, translating that using the natural language processing so that then it can go find the results, find things that it can play back to you as responses based on what you're looking for here. A couple of recently that you may have in your houses, or you may know people who now have these virtual assistants that they are. Again, just another iteration, another example of voice-driven technology that users can interact with computers here and using artificial intelligence to provide the responses and the information. And something that's really exploded in 2016, particularly here, is the way online communications have really been changing. If you think about how long we've been talking for 5 or 6 years now about social media and social networks and the growth of social networks and the 1.6 billion people on Facebook around the world here. But if you look on the blue columns here and the growth of messaging services, that they have even far eclipsed that of what's happening on social networking. So the messaging applications, things like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and iMessage on Apple here, are just becoming the communication channel for so many people. And Satya Nadella last year even said that this might be the next user interface. This may be the one that, for some of us who started as a graphical user interface, we were happy to have the GUI with buttons and things we can drag through here. Maybe this is the new interface that we are either typing or speaking into these interfaces, into these tools, and be able to communicate with others, with businesses, or with other machines. A couple of examples here. Things that we are also doing here at Avaya here is in what is often called the chatbot sort of world here. And here's an example of a customer here opening up their banking application, and the automatic bot is greeting the person here, and then using natural language here, the customer is able to say what they're trying to do. They're trying to transfer money to a certain person, and if the bot recognizes who this is, what they're trying to do, and who they're trying to do it to here, it's able to complete the entire transaction. There's no need for opening up the banking app and going through the menus and the options that they supply here. Bots within customers' applications, your mobile apps here, give you the advantage of very quickly rolling out new features and functionality without having to redesign a new entire mobile application. How is this working here in Avaya? So just some of the basics here that you understand when we talk about machine learning and artificial intelligence driving, in this example of chatbot and automation, message automation here. Message automation and AI means you need to have a number of conversations. We need to have a certain level of conversations, we call them transactions here, before the system gets really smart. It takes time for real machine learning to learn what is the next right answer if it's only had a few conversations. Think about if you had a child and you were teaching a child its language, first language here. It takes time before that person is able then to really understand and use the language in the right way. But from day one, the message automation tool here is doing things like language identification. So it can tag the languages and identify, is it English, is it German, is it Dutch, and make sure we, if necessary, we get it to the right person who then can handle that language here. It can do basic classification. Is this a new customer? Is this an unhappy customer? Is this a customer that's complaining about something? Or are they looking for a product here? And all this can then enable real efficient routing, particularly when you're doing a contact center or a call center integration here, getting things to the right person with the right information. But immediately as those conversations are happening, the machine learning automation is kicking in. It's listening to every conversation. And it's also being trained. It needs to be taught on what good conversations are. Somebody told me recently, or it was when I was at the CeBIT fair in Hanover just recently, they were talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, and they said, well, garbage in, garbage out. So if your machine learns from poor conversations, you would know what this would mean. If you were looking at transcripts of a web chat conversation between a customer and an agent, you would know that some of those conversations weren't the best, and you would not really want to have a bot talking the same way here. So some of your language needs to be modulated here. You need to manually adapt some of this here. This is not heavy lifting, but it is an effort that needs to be made. You want to replicate those successful dialogues you have here. And over time, these multi-turn dialogue automation, when we say we want to be able to query the customer's interest here, what are they trying to find out? Who are they? What is their user ID number here? What specifically are they looking for here? And if the bot at that certain point is unable to provide 100% what is the next best answer, it can seamlessly transfer that whole conversation down to an agent. This seamless integration of an agent is incredibly important. Where could this all be applied? Well, here, wherever you may be doing text communications. This could be your company app, as we showed before in the example. It could be using basic SMS. It could also be on any of the social media messaging platforms out there here. So maybe I wanted to give you something, not just talk about artificial intelligence and all this high in the sky sort of idea here. I wanted to give you something that you can take away today, that you can go into your business tomorrow and you'll be able to understand this and use this when talking to your colleagues and even maybe to your customers here. So these are things, when we talk about building a customer care solution here, these are all the pieces that often come into play. And there are a few that I left off just for saving space here. But let me give you an example of something you should all understand today. If we think of the voice world, when a phone call is coming into your contact center, when we talk about user context, who is that person? What is their phone number, and what phone number did they dial? The Dinas and the Annie here. We've been using these for decades. The analysis piece is either done by voice biometrics, which might not be used by a lot of people today. It could be speaker ID, which is provided by another supplier out there. Automation, as you would certainly know, is the IVR systems here, and routing is your ACD. So all these things you're very familiar with here. Your desktop applications with your agents can be the soft clients, or it could be a complete integrated client that they're having here, or even perhaps even a hard phone. And of course, road reporting here would be your ACD reporting. So this is something that you should all be very familiar with here. And again, the same example, or a similar example with email. The email, the context would be the from address. The analysis would be part of who it was written to, and perhaps if you're doing any content analysis here, what was written inside of it there. Your automation may be responses, your routing could be manual, or it could be ACDs here. Of course, you may be using soft clients or integrated, but you may have your own dedicated client, like an email client here. Again, your ACD reporting is also used here. So when we talk about the messaging automation landscape, so thinking about chatbots, what parts are playing a role here? Of course, we have things like where are the conversations coming from here? If they're mobile apps, they could be your virtual assistants, or it could be as basic as web chat. Could be coming from social media apps here, and of course, any of these messaging apps might be what's also being used. And in the future, we see things like the Internet of Things as being often a trigger where some of these messages are perhaps coming from. In the middle, you have a lot of the processing languages here. So who is providing natural language processing and machine learning? There's lots of different players, or there's a few different players out there in the marketplace. Of course, Avaya is one of their own. Some of the frameworks that you can use to build these bots and the platforms they're available on, some of these are specific for certain platforms. If you want to build online, for example, a very popular messaging application platform in Japan and Korea, you can build something specific for the Line platform. Or there's others that let you apply and build a bot or a framework here that you can move across a multitude of solutions here. Avaya's messaging automation allows you to build a framework and apply it to any messaging application where we can get a connection to. And then the integration piece is, of course, where Avaya strives to play a role here. So not just being able to build the great bot and be smart from its AI and machine learning perspective here, but insights to really understand the customer are going to come from your own business. So many of you might be familiar with the concept of next best actions, which are typically driven things in a sales environment here. If you have an outbound sales organization and agents are on their computers there and they're making calls to customers here, often there's cue cards popping up on their screen here based on things that are happening either in the back-end systems here or recognized through the conversation to say, this is the next best thing you should be offering here. This is where Avaya Breeze comes in and makes that integration piece here seamless across the entire landscape, of course into the contact center, and with everything that's feeding it in from the landscape above. But now I want to come back to what I was talking about a moment ago. So understand the world you see here below that you're already familiar with, the voice and email. What does this now mean in the messaging space? So if you take messaging as the input here, the user context, depending on where this is starting from here, if it's an SMS, it would be their ANI, so their phone number here. On some of the social networks, it might be a user details or a profile ID might be sent with us here. A lot of this information you might not be collecting yet today. You might not be able to take advantage of, but you will be soon. The analysis stage, some of these we've already talked about here, are understanding the language. Sentiment, meaning, were they happy or unhappy? What types of words, what types of phrases were they using? Classification, what are they trying to do here? Things we are undertaking there in the analysis stage. And then entities play a role. Understand, let's put this in a certain area here so we can do further processing. This is what all up falls underneath that natural language processing idea of artificial intelligence. Under the automation place, then we have the learned automation. This is based on those conversations, those experiences the engine has had before. It learns, and based on that, it knows how to respond and provide the next best answers here. And that's where the machine learning component here comes in. And of course, part of automation, like you have in IVRs, when you think in the voice world, you can also have scripted experiences in messaging in OL. You could have a form filler type application, all based on SMS, where you're collecting certain pieces of data here to complete an application form. The routing is going to be done by your ACD, meaning if it comes down to an agent. Your clients are going to be things you're already familiar with here, and your reporting is all the same. So only those pieces here in green are the ones that's changed. So getting your head around these things is really not very hard. We don't need to be specialists in natural language processing and understand how all this is exactly working, or even the machine learning piece here. It's just very important that you understand how these pieces play a role and in which order they play a role here, so that when you're just talking to your potential AI solution provider here, you're a little bit more informed on how to have that conversation. So when we go into the next step of some of the things we might be doing with some of this artificial intelligence here is how to assist an agent to do more work here. So based on an agent having a conversation, writing back and forth in a web chat to a customer here, being able to have dynamic responses popping up on their desktop tool here to say, this is what the bot thinks is the next best thing you should be saying back here. Or even offering those actions that need to be looked at. It could also be doing knowledge-based lookups for you here, directly from an agent. Whether this is automated based on what's being typed into the windows back and forth between customer and agent, or the agent might have their own window where they're typing in certain keywords into a tool, which is also doing an automated lookup based on the same technology here, to then feed them back what may be the best results to give to a customer. In the process assistant, I talked about the graphical analysis here. I took a picture of a breakfast I had on my photo I had on my computer of a breakfast I ate recently, and put this into the Google Cloud Vision API here. You can go try this out. They're out on the web. It's easy to find here. And this is the results. It recognized, based on that picture that I took, that it was food. It was probably breakfast. Even it has berries is what they figured. It does the input analysis. It's extracting data out of this here. And that data then can be used individually to decide what's the next step of the process. So take this away from maybe pancakes and blueberries into something, if you're an insurance company who's asking a customer to send you a photo of the damaged product here, you could be analyzing that photograph here before it even gets to an agent desktop here to provide already inputs, to provide keys that might be used to help to drive the next step of the processes. Last example here is something that's completely different here, but it popped up on my radar a week or so ago. You're all familiar with Pizza Hut. We talk about the Internet of Things here, and this is a limited edition set of tennis shoes that Pizza Hut is bringing out, from which the tennis shoes you can order pizza, believe it or not. On the tennis shoe, it's connected via Bluetooth to your telephone, and using the app on your phone there, the Pizza Hut app, all you need to do is push a button on the shoe, and it automatically sends out the order there. That's not really very high-techy, and it is a cool example of the Internet of Things if you want here. But now take that the next step here and think, what could we do with Avaya Breeze to apply the business process here to understand which person is this here? What is their location based on the application here? Do I need to send a feedback back to the person by an app or by a messaging operative here to find out, is that really what they wanted to do? Did they order 6 pizzas while they were playing the basketball game and they just happened to be hitting the button in their shoe, or was it a mistake here? Having that if then this then that rules processing here in place here to make sure the right process could actually make this process a little bit more interesting. So what is this all about? These are some of the areas we've talking about here today where this all might play a role. Avaya Breeze is sitting right here in the middle, either attaching itself to virtual assistants and other recognition tools, being able to bring in third-party API access here for other features and opportunities here. Tools from speech recognition or text-to-speech, speech-to-text automation here can be applied to it. And of course, the messaging automation, where we see a lot of interest in asking around here, is looking for how can we take advantage of what it seems users and customers are looking for, bot-type experiences here, all integrated within the Avaya Breeze platform. So how did that get from engagement 3.0 to engagement 4.0? I'd like to hope that what we've been able to take from those 1.0 experiences, taking all those insights, taking what we've learned about customers along the way, not just having an automated bot conversation with the customer here just because it's nice to do, but taking those conversations and at the same time connecting them with your back-end information, what you already know about the customer along the way, so that that customer feels like you really understand who they are and where they are. Thank you.